Everybody, my name is Tandalyn Daniel. I'm the Director of Communications and Member Relations here at the Federation of Southern Cooperatives Land Assistance Fund. We hold Federation Lives with our membership and non-members of Black farmers, landowners, and cooperatives. We do this in an effort to educate you guys about what's going on in the focus areas that we deal with, which are cooperative development, land retention, and advocacy. This program that we're going to discuss today is the Discrimination Financial Assistance Program, better known as DFAP. It is a part of the Inflation Reduction Act, Section 22007. And what it is doing is for any producer who experienced discrimination in the farm service agency lending process prior to January of 2021, wanting you to fill out an application, state what happened to you, the impact that it had on you as a producer, and then you will be awarded finances, or you will be rewarded financial assistance from $0 up to $500,000. The deadline for the application is July 13th, 2024. And I wanted to first top line with that to set the tone and scope about the program that we will be discussing. The Federation of Southern Cooperatives Land Assistance Fund is a 56-year-old cooperative association of Black farmers, landowners, and cooperatives. We are chartered to operate in 17 states. We work with Black farmers in all of those states. We are helping farmers with technical assistance to fill out this application in 7 states. That would be Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Texas. We are one of the 8 designated cooperators to help in that capacity. And this will be a discussion of an updated guidebook on filling out the application that Caleb and his organization have put together, which is geared towards helping Black farmers. I know that I've said a lot. Digest that for a second. Please put your questions in the chat. Also, please remain on mute if you are not speaking. And with that, let me introduce our speaker of the hour, Caleb Jackson. He serves as a policy attorney at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law in Washington, D.C., where he advocates on behalf of Black people and people of color by engaging with members of Congress and federal agencies. Caleb works on a variety of racial justice issues, including Black farmers' rights, voting rights, economic justice, criminal justice, and educational equity. He is a proud native of Dallas, Texas, and a Hampton University and UCLA law alum. Caleb, take it away. Could you tell us a little bit more about your organization? I know that was a top line. And then the guide that you're going to get into today.
Yep. Thank you so much, Sandy. Happy to share a little bit more about the Lawyers Committee. We're an organization that was founded in 1963 at the request of President John F. Kennedy at the height of the Civil Rights Movement. We include a staff of attorneys and also other folks who aren't attorneys, like organizers who work on a variety of issues, all the issues I just named, and some others that really deal with civil rights beyond just Black farmers issues, but this is also one of our core issues. We have been involved with the Federation since the Miller v. Vilsack case, where the original American Rescue Plan Act debt relief program was challenged. We stepped in to represent the Federation after that program was challenged in court. I think most folks know, but some don't, that this original debt relief program was challenged. After that, Congress stepped in before it could get any higher, I guess, to the Supreme Court to revoke that program and replace it with this program that we're discussing today, which is the Discrimination Financial Assistance Program. So I'll stop there, and I'm happy to jump into the presentation whenever you're ready, Tandem.
All right, give me one more second. I want everybody to go on mute. If you are not speaking, if you have a question, please put it in the chat. At the end of this, I'm going to ask people to show their faces so that we can get a picture for our social media as we continue to try to spread the word about this program. Before Caleb gets started, I'm going to share my screen, which will show, I believe it's a 23-page document of how to step through and apply if you want to do that on your own. I want to let everybody know that we have a deadline coming up of November the 3rd. That would be this Friday. If you are trying to request records from FSA to add to your application. The intent of this program is to teach Black farmers how to apply. We probably have, I see some staff on the line, and this is the Black farmer or the applicant's opportunity to ask questions and learn. And with that, here it goes, Caleb. Let me put up on the screen. And folks, give a thumbs up if you can see that. Gotcha. All right. So Caleb, take it away.
Will do. Thank you so much, Tandem. So this is a training guide. I shared a little bit about the Discrimination Financial Assistance Program. This is just a training guide to kind of help applicants maneuver through the application. I know the application is long, and I know this document looks long as well because it has 23 pages, but this document is really about 14 pages, and then it includes an annex at the end that shows you which documents you should try to submit with each section of the application. So we're about to go through each of those sections, and then you'll see like a note in the piece of the guide that describes each section saying, see the annex for the right documents to submit here. And that's basically what the last, I guess, 7 pages of the 6 or 7 pages are, just, those that document from the USDA showing you which documents to submit. So yeah, let's kick it off. So the Discrimination Financial Assistance Program was launched by USDA this past summer, or this summer, not past summer, in July, and the application will remain open until January 13th, 2024. For folks who either were on the last training or are familiar with this application, that deadline was earlier, but USDA did extend it at the request of folks like the Federation. So thank you to the Federation for your advocacy on there, because it is a long application and can take quite a while. So under the program, farmers, ranchers, forest landowners who have experienced discrimination by the USDA prior to January 1st of 2021 have the opportunity to receive financial assistance of up to $500,000. So of course, everybody who applies won't get $500,000, but they just set $500,000 as the maximum amount that somebody could get. And that determination will be based on the nature and consequences of the discrimination experienced. So next, discussing eligibility, who exactly is eligible for this program. So as we already stated, anyone who has experienced discrimination by the USDA prior to January 1st, 2021 in either USDA farm loan programs, which are currently administered by the FSA, are currently debtors with assigned or assumed debt from the USDA that was also subject to USDA discrimination that occurred prior to January 1st, 2021. So I'll break that down and, kind of make that a little more simple. Basically, what this means is if you were discriminated if you as the farmer, the rancher, the forest landowner, or someone who wanted to become a farmer, rancher, or forest landowner were discriminated against directly by the USDA prior to January 2021, when you were trying to apply for a USDA farm loan, whether you received that loan or not, then you are eligible. The second piece of this that talks about what folks who have assigned or assumed debt is a little bit different, because under that, you would have to have been assigned or assumed a USDA loan specifically. So in that scenario, and we're going to get into examples later in the presentation, that kind of covers folks who either got the debt from their parents or, some ancestor who passed down that debt to them after they passed. But that, unlike the first piece, will only apply if that debt is USDA farm loan debt.
Can I ask a question here, Caleb? So we've had quite a few people wanting to apply on behalf of their deceased relatives who experienced discrimination. If I'm understanding you correctly, it's not as simple and cut and dried as that. Right. Okay. You go.
Yeah. So, and again, we're going to get into this later in the program. If your father or your mother experienced discrimination at the hands of USDA, right? Let's say they applied for a USDA loan and got it super late, like to the point where, like, by the time they received the funds, there was no way for them to, turn a profit on their crop that year, or, some other scenario. And then they passed away and you were assigned that USDA debt or assumed that USDA debt, you can apply for this program. But if you're, let's say your father or your mother applied or wanted to apply for a loan and was denied, but you never applied for a loan and you have not received any debt from your mother or your father, then I don't believe you would be eligible for the program. But of course, if you have questions, these, are questions for your administrators that you can pose as well, because I know that they're providing assistance. And also, I will provide examples, as I've said, of like not specific scenarios, but like descriptive scenarios that can kind of break this down a little more. So the first piece, if you experience the discrimination, there are a few covered lending programs that make you eligible. So any farmer, rancher, or forest landowner who has experienced discrimination directly by the USDA in the following farm loan programs may be eligible for relief under the program. So this includes farm ownership loans, farm operating loans, micro loans, youth loans, and then there are a few others on the next page. So farm storage facility loans, emergency loans, economic emergency loans, emergency livestock loans, et cetera, et cetera. However, rural development loans are not covered by the program. So the program does cover both direct and guaranteed lending through USDA's Farm Service Agency. So, if you have a direct loan from the USDA, and now I'm talking about if you were the person that experienced the discrimination, or you got a loan from, a financial servicer who and the loan was guaranteed by USDA, both of those situations should be applicable. But the discrimination has to be at the hands of the USDA employee. So like if you applied for a loan through a bank and the bank, person is the one who discriminated against you, you wouldn't be eligible. Like the discrimination has to be from a USDA employee. So now this is
are you taking questions at the end? Because I can make notes and ask at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so this the next piece, what is discrimination? So discrimination is pretty broad. As folks know, basically discrimination means treating someone differently because of, for Black farmers, their race. But also this program does not just cover race. It also covers color, national origin, ethnicity, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, age, marital status, disability, etc. So for this program, obviously because we're working with the Federation, this presentation is kind of focused on instances that, Black farmers faced when it comes to discrimination, but the program is not that limited. Other folks can apply too. So if you're a Black woman, or if you're just a woman, period, and experience discrimination because of your gender or your sex, you can apply too. But for the purposes of this presentation, and I know most of the folks applying on this call are Black farmers. So we will focus on like the scenarios that are, most common for Black farmers that would allow someone to be eligible under this program. I should also say, when you hear these descriptions of who's eligible and you see these examples of discrimination, don't think that because this example or what happened to you is not listed here, that you shouldn't apply. I think that folks should definitely be applying to this program. It is a lot of money. And if you were discriminated against, even if it wasn't in the exact way that is described in this guide, because this guide is not legal advice, I would definitely still suggest that you apply because you may still be applicable for the program. So, experiencing discrimination by the USDA and farm loan programs may include any of the following things: failure to provide appropriate assistance. And these are all, usually instances where you're dealing with the FSA officer or USDA employee. Delay in processing or your loan application, outright denial of a FSA loan or loan servicing, prevention from applying for a loan or loan servicing, receipt of an FSA loan with unfavorable or adverse loan terms, burdensome supervision of loan requirements. So, an instance where the FSA officer said, oh, well, you can apply and we may approve it, but we need to come to your farm 10 times before we can approve it. That's basically what that means. And our approval of an FSA loan with an unworkably late disbursement. So what that means, I was kind of describing a scenario like that earlier, like you applied for the loan, but they held off on processing your loan for so long that by the time you actually got the money, you couldn't even use it anymore because this growing season had either ended or it was way too late to plant that crop and, make a return on it. So these examples here are examples that we've included in the guidebook. I should also say that the guidebook is available on the Federation's website. These are just, like I said, descriptive examples. So one, if the situation that happened to you is not one of these, that doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. Like, these are just examples. They are not meant to be the only scenarios in which someone can get money. And then two, these are just examples. So don't, I would not copy and paste these onto an application. Make sure that when you're applying, you use your story and what happened to you, and don't use these specific examples because they are just examples. So, just to go through them and kind of give you all more context about the kind of farmers that this are the kind of landowners, period, that this application and program is supposed to reach. I'll go through a few of these examples. So the first, I received approval for an FSA loan that I applied for in January of 2008, but I received the funds much later than the white farmers who submitted their applications at the same time received their funds. This is, we're talking about discrimination here. So it's important, that you show not only that something happened to you, but that people who were either white, or if you're a woman, men who the same thing did not happen to them when they applied. So, just to continue, meanwhile, white farmers in my area who applied for the same or similar loans at the same time received their funds in March and were able to take advantage. I incurred more debt because I received my FSA loan way too late to optimize my crop. And the late disbursement of those funds required me to borrow money from elsewhere at higher rates to stay afloat until I received the FSA loan. So, That one, and this is more of the discrimination happened to me. I was kind of describing this earlier. Like if the discrimination happened to you specifically, then that your current debt or any debt you have right now does not have to be from an FSA loan directly. That's if you were discriminated against. So for example, this scenario, if you went and took a private loan out with crazy interest rates because FSA was taking too long to disperse the money, that is debt that would, make you eligible for this program. The next scenario, however, I know Tandalin, you were asking about folks who wanted to apply on behalf of their father or their mother or someone that was discriminated against in their family. This is like the unique scenario where that would be possible. So I currently owe the USDA $750,000 in loan payments after I inherited my late father's USDA loan. My father, who farmed for 50 years and passed away in 2019, applied for a USDA operation loan in 2015. Our local FSA agents asked my father to justify certain expenses that white farmers in our area did not have to justify to receive their operation loans. The FSA agents repeatedly required my father to justify his expenses to delay his application, and my father applied for the loan immediately after he discovered that insects invaded his crop. My father would have had time to save his crop if the application was approved in a reasonable amount of time. However, because he received the loan after his entire crop had already been destroyed, he was not able to use the funds to turn a profit. As a result, he was never able to pay the loan back, and the debt was assigned, and that's bolded and underlined, to me. I'm afraid that I will lose the land my family has farmed on for generations due to the discrimination we have experienced at the hands of USDA and the subsequent debt we incurred as a result of that discrimination. So again, this is a scenario where, yes, even if you weren't the person who was directly discriminated against, if it was your father or your mother, this is the kind of scenario where you would still be eligible for this program. And okay, let me see. Yeah, I'll do the third example and then we can just move on. And you all should, like I said, this is online, so feel free to read this as well, but I'll just do one more in the sake of time. So, last example, like I said, this is broad, so it doesn't only apply to Black farmers. If you're, like I said, if you're a Black woman landowner and you were discriminated against, and your discrimination, you felt like that discrimination was because you were a woman, you would be eligible. And then also, even if you're not a Black woman, if you're just a woman, period, you would be eligible. If you felt like your discrimination was based on your religion, like folks knew what your religion was and decided not to give you the loan because of that, you would also be eligible. So this is just one last example that I'll give. So in 2018, I went to my local FSA office to receive an application for a farm loan. But when I got to the front of the line, the FSA officer refused to hand me an application. The FSA officer told me that the FSA loan program I was applying to had run out of money. But as soon as I turned around to leave, the same officer handed a male farmer the application I had asked for. I know that the only reason the officer refused to give me an application was because I was a woman. Many of the women farmers I know have experienced similar incidents. FSA officers often tell us things like farming is for men, or ask questions like, shouldn't your father be the one applying for the loan, or your husband, before refusing to hand us applications. So this is a scenario, like I said, we included this one just to show how the program can be broader than just specifically, race discrimination. And so, Tandalin, I'll go to the next section. So now I'll get into, the specifics of how to apply for the application. I think most folks know you can apply either online, or you can apply in person, or you can apply, just by printing the application out, filling it out yourself, and mailing it in. But I know that, USDA or the administrators have encouraged folks, if possible, to do it online, just because the application is so long, and if certain things in the application don't apply to you, the online portal will skip those, versus if you're doing it, in print or in person, then you would have to go through each and every page, even if it didn't apply for you. So it may be a little easier to apply online. I also know that you don't have to sit down and do it all at one time if you're doing it online. You can kind of save your place and come back to it later. So that's another. But I mean, you could obviously do that if you were doing it, and if you printed it out as well, but that's one additional benefit of doing it online. So another important piece, applicants should only apply to this once. Please only submit one copy of your application. So don't submit it online and then print it out and mail it in to just, submit one copy. Next, completing and submitting the application is the only requirement for financial assistance through the program. This is super important. This is not a legal process. This is not, a court case. All you have to do is complete the application, fill it out, and submit it. And then they will make the determination. So there will not be any hearings, appeals. You won't have to come into court. You won't have to go into any office to deal with any kind of legal proceedings or anything. All you have to do is file the application and any supporting documents that go along with each portion of the application. And then, finally, when submitting the application, you must also agree to allow program administrators to obtain any information the USDA or any other federal, state, or local agencies, including the IRS, possess relating to the applicant's financial status and the application. So this is super important because if you are putting, let's say you're filling out a section of the application and you say, I currently have $750,000 in debt. Well, the USDA will have access to your financial records. So it is important that you don't lie about anything in the application because they will be able to pull up, your IRS records, your state tax records, any, federal financial information that, basically proves what you're saying in the application. So make sure you're being consistent. And then applying for the program is free. There are no costs. I know that there are, attorneys that have charged folks. Obviously, the Federation is not charging anyone for its assistance with the program. But, it is important to know that if you do receive a financial award under this program, that money will come to you. If you signed a legal agreement, obligating that said you had to pay the attorney, then, that would probably apply in this situation, but you don't have to. So if anyone is coming to you, any attorneys, anybody else saying, oh, well, to apply for this program, it costs XYZ, that's just not true. You can apply to the program for free. So we'll move to the next section. And then I see your question, Tandalin, about if an application was submitted by a lawyer, can you have the application withdrawn and then resubmit it? I do not know the answer to that question. That would be something for the administrator. I assume that you may not be able to do that, but I don't, have a final answer. So I would definitely ask the administrators. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm trying. I think, am I on mute? I don't know.
No, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can't see it's on my screen. And I also want to just pause here because we're just before the 12:30 mark. And the other questions that we just have to, one from Mrs. Townsend. If you were discriminated against.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, if she could ask you, and then because I will take this up with the administrators and the hubs and try to get back to folks. So Joy, could you ask right now before we get going again?
Trying to hit my unmute button. What my question is if in the rule book, it says that FSA will service and monitor. And so if you, basically, I would say a cover up, if they did not act on my complaint, and then then I applied for a direct loan to pay off the guaranteed loan because there was the discrimination and there was a plan that was not what they had proposed. There's a lot to it. It's I keep telling everyone in the state of all of these, probably in the top 10. And this has been 7-8 years now. But in doing that, my question is, if you are saying they discriminated against you during that time because they were not following the rule book with their obligations for a guaranteed loan. They were ignoring and like not even acknowledging in a bankruptcy court that it was a guaranteed loan. It's not even on the books. Wouldn't that qualify?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like I said, you know, the administrators will make that determination. I do think that's a scenario where you should apply, because I think that is, you know, if the USDA.
What I'm fine.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
What I'm finding is not should I. The question is this: what I've seen is the pattern how we got to here is that once it's so messy, they just get away with it. So there is always that doubt. But yes, I will apply. So
yeah,
thank you.
and then I would make clear in the application that I submitted this complaint. USDA did not act upon it. I have proof that they didn't act upon it. I have proof that I submitted the complaint. Because that
correct, because
I think that would potentially qualify.
So with that,
right, because I actually asked for a waiver and they never acknowledged it.
So Joy, since we've got your question answered, and I know we just have an hour for this format, we might even ask
Sorry.
Back. No, sorry. We really want to hear from people and what their experiences have been. But now we're gonna probably go for another solid 15 minutes.
I'll dive back in and try to answer more questions at the end.
Okay.
It is important that we get through this. So just, deadline, as I said, January 13th, 2024. If you're submitting online, you have all the way up to 11:59. Obviously, don't start your application then. It takes a long time, but you can submit it all the way up to 11:59 p.m. On January 13th. If you are submitting by mail, it has to be postmarked by January 13th. Everybody knows what that means, but basically, like, you can't drop it off in the mailbox at 11 p.m. on January 13th, because it will probably be postmarked for the day after that. So if you're still sending it by mail, make sure that you're sending it before or by the day that would allow it to be postmarked. I would say, the way the mail is going right now, I don't know how the mail is where y'all live, but it's been a little slow where I live lately. So I would suggest, dropping it off or at the post office 2 or 3 days before, just to make sure it gets postmarked on time. And then if you're submitting in person at a regional office, you have until 8 p.m. on January 13th, 2024. Decisions will be made at the same time. So, I don't know if there are folks who have already applied, but the decisions will be made at the exact same time. So, and that is after the application window closes. So it is our understanding that you will, even if you submitted your application the first week it was open in July, you will not find out until after, whether you're getting money until after the application window closes. So for supportive documentation, this is kind of what I was referring to earlier. There are several parts of the application that require additional documents. And then there are other parts of the application that say, if you want to submit additional documents, you can. There's a, document at the end of this called Annex A, or which we have called Annex A, from the USDA that lists the kind of documents that you should submit with each part of the application. So as I continue going through the sections, I can kind of flag that. You'll see throughout, like, refer to Annex A. And I think that begins on like page 14 or 15 of this document. And then requesting documents, Tandalin, you already went through that, so we can skip through that. Make sure if if you need records to apply for the program, make sure you do that by this Friday. And you can do that via email. So that's super easy, actually. But they do request that you include all the information listed here when you send that email in order to get your documents.
Hold on one second, guys. I was trying to attach the document, but it is on our website. Going back to sharing, 1 second. I did that. Technical, so I won't be doing that again. 1 second.
No way.
Yeah.
It's like the circle next to it. I saw it.
Which one?
At the bottom.
Down here?
No, not at the bar at the bottom. Like the black bar.
Oh, I can't see what you're talking about. I'm just trying to reopen it. Hold on.
Okay.
Today. As you guys can see, we're sometimes busy. Hold on.
Yeah,
Plus,
nah, I think if you just go to your the bottom of your laptop, like you see the bar, like the search bar at the bottom.
yeah, I do
Yeah,
now.
click on the one next to Excel, like in between files in Excel. I don't know what it is.
Caleb,
Yeah.
my Georgia brain is gonna reopen it, and everybody
Okay.
laugh, and we're gonna cut this out the video.
Okay.
Hold on. Watch what I'm about to do. Or Sade, if you're there, if you can help me out here. I don't know with the
I'm
screen share.
here.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to. I clicked on a button trying to be helpful to a question, and I knocked myself out there.
You need to pull the document back up.
That's right, and because I was following along with Caleb, and I don't see it on my downloads. I'm not gonna say another word till I get it.
Hmm.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's cut off a little bit.
I'm coming back in. I'm coming back in. I'm gonna try to get it, okay? Because I was doing a great job until I tried to answer a question. Um, Screen share. Share. Here we go. Where
Okay.
were we? Okay.
There we go. All right, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, requesting documents. If there are documents that you don't have that you believe the USDA has that will help your application, make sure you request those by this Friday. And then we can just go to the next section. And then these, I'll just like zoom through these. You can keep scrolling. These are instructions on how to submit it, either electronically or in person, or to mail it submit it by mailing it off. So I'll just you all can read that once you look at it. This is available for download on the website. So we'll be sure to drop that link. And then you can keep going.
Step
All
one,
right.
step two. Okay.
Yep, perfect. So now I'll go into the, basically the section where we will actually tell you how are the best ways to fill out this application. So step one, this is just probably the simplest piece of the application. It's just asking you for your basic information, name, date of birth, address, social security number, contact information. And then you will also have to include any information about anyone helping you fill out the form. So, if you're Federation staff and you're helping folks, you'll have to include your information there. Or if you are going through an attorney to do this, the attorney will have to include their information there. So step two, ask you what kind of applicant you are. So you would have to put either you're applying on behalf of yourself. If you have a co-op or some other kind of agreement where you own the farm or own the land with someone else, then you will put self and a co-borrower. If you own the farm as a member of an entity, you will put that. And then when we were talking about, scenarios where you either were assigned or assumed this debt from a parent or someone else, then you would put the last pieces where it says debtor for assigned assumed debt that is the subject of this application. And, again, if you own it yourself, you just put no co-borrower. If you own it with someone else, or if you have the debt with someone else, then you would put with a co-borrower. So we can go down to section 3. So step 3, eligibility again, it asks you, are you a farmer or a rancher? So you can apply if you're currently a farmer or a rancher, or if you were a farmer or a rancher. And then the third scenario is someone who had intended to be a farmer or a rancher, but ultimately was not able to do so because of the discrimination they face. And so these are just some questions you should ask yourself. For Federation staff, these are questions that you can ask folks. if you do own a farm, then you need to submit documentation in this step. So they will accept several pieces, several kinds of documentation. Some of those include a deed, property tax records, or a producer farm report listing you as the owner. If you lease the farm, then review the documentation at the end, or review the items at the end of this document, which we will get to later. If you never farmed, then you have to also submit a lot of documentation proving that you actually plan to. So whether that's a loan application, a business plan, any investments made, any education you enrolled in, you can't just say I intended to farm, so I'm applying. They will need documentation that shows that you actually did intend to farm or ranch. And so like this kind of supportive documentation you could use for this section, and a business plan, like I said, loan application. If you purchased equipment, even though you never were able to farm, if you had purchased farming equipment, that would count. But you need documentation for all of these things. So moving to step 4, this is about eligibility as a borrower in a USDA farm loan program. So in order to confirm your eligibility for the program under this kind, or under this, kind of eligibility, you should ask, did you participate in a direct lending program? These are questions to ask yourself if you're applying. They're questions to ask the person you're helping if you're assisting someone else apply. Did you attempt to participate in a direct lending program? Did you participate in a guaranteed lending program or attempt to? And supporting documentation for this section, again, loan documents, either an application or any agency letters indicating that your loan was approved, a promissory note that you signed at the beginning of the loan, or proof of any loan payments made. All of these things would be, applicable documentation that you could attach for this section. And then we'll go on to section 5. So for section 5, we were talking about discrimination. These are just some questions to ask yourself if you're applying. Why do you believe you were discriminated against? Do you feel like you were treated differently than other people? So if you're a Black farmer, do you feel like you were treated differently than the white farmers in your area? If you're a woman farmer, do you feel like you were treated differently than the male farmers in your area? And be sure to describe the specific discrimination. So like, if you know that you were discriminated against because of your race, make sure you say, I was discriminated against because of my race. If you know it was because of your sex or sexual orientation or gender, make sure you put that, like, I know I was discriminated against. And then there's also perceived status, or, identity rather than actual status. So if someone thought, I think, it's kind of rare, but I mean, it does happen. If they thought you were Black and decided not to give you the loan because they thought you were Black, even though you're not Black, then that's discrimination too. Kind of more, I guess, more common is if they thought you were, Muslim, or if they thought you were some other religion and decided not to, give you a loan or help you because of that. Even if you aren't, that would apply as well. And then I guess just to wrap this up, a lot of times what we know happens is that a loan officer will mistake you for someone else. So that's another scenario where if someone in your area had previously filed a civil rights complaint against the USDA or against the FSA officers, and the FSA officer decided not to help you because they thought you were that person, then that would, put you in the same kind of situation where you would be eligible. And then, this is another piece. Again, this is really written for staff members to help folks, but if you are applying yourself, it should be helpful to you as well. For each instance of discrimination, this is important, I should say this. When you're applying for this program, if you were discriminated against on multiple occasions, then you have the opportunity to detail each instance of discrimination. So you don't have to pick one scenario or one instance where you're discriminated against. You have the opportunity to write every single time that it's happened to you as a farmer or someone who wanted to farm. And so when you do that, these are the kinds of things you need to make sure you're writing. Why were you eligible for the loan? If it was a loan that you either didn't get or got late, talk about your education, farm experience, your farm loan history, farm loan credit, et cetera, et cetera. Make sure you're including the date and location of discrimination. So, make sure you're saying I had a farm in this area, or I leased a farm in this town, and this is the date that this discrimination happens to me. If you don't know the exact date, try to get close. Like if it was in October, but you don't know the specific date, just write October. Make sure you're being detailed about the story. Make sure you're, telling the truth. Also, if I'm glad that I think Ms. Townsend raised, she had put in previous complaints. If you have previously complained about the conduct of the discrimination, make sure that what you're putting in this application isn't aligned with that, because they will have access to previous claims. So make sure that you're being consistent and saying the same thing you said in those previous incidents, because I think if you described it one way, in a previous claim or in a previous complaint, and then you describe it a completely different way here, that may raise red flags. So these are just some other things you should include. If you know exactly who discriminated against you or who you complained to that didn't do anything about it, write their information, their name, their title, their position. If you don't have their name, write the office that it happened at, et cetera, et cetera. And then, if anyone else observed the discrimination and is willing to help you, you can also have folks submit statements on your behalf. They will have to swear under penalty of perjury that it happened, but that is an option as well. And so we can go down to step 6. I think I did see a question in the chat about this. When it comes to your losses, you do want to be able to explain the specific losses in detail as much as possible. So some of the questions that you should ask yourself for this section, which kind of requires you to explain exactly what your financial or other loss was. Did you lose land? If you lost land, how much land? If you lost your entire farm, obviously that's pretty easy. But if you lost a few acres or several acres of your farm, then you will want to put, I lost, this amount of acres. If your home was used as collateral and you lost your home, you will want to put that as well. Were there any debt offsets, garnishments, deficiency judgments imposed on you because of the discrimination? You will want to put that as well. And then after that, any other economic loss due to discrimination. So any other loss you experienced, you will want to put calculations of that loss, details regarding that loss, the dates, the amounts, and then supportive documentation. So whether that's tax returns from that year or other, things that show exactly what you lost. And then, be sure to read any other economic loss broadly. That can include an economic loss from a divorce that happened because you lost your farm after being discriminated against by USDA. And then finally, the most important piece for step 6, you have to tie the losses to the discrimination. So if you lost your farm and it had nothing to do with you being discriminated against, then they will probably not, or let me not even say probably not, that may not give you the best opportunity to receive assistance under this program. In order to have the best opportunity to receive assistance under this program, it is important that you tie any loss that you're writing about to the discrimination. So I lost my farm on this date, or I lost this many acres on this date. I lost it because I applied for a loan or some other financial assistance. Let's say 6 months before I lost my farm, never received it. If I would have gotten that loan, or if I would have, either gotten that loan period or gotten that loan in time, I wouldn't have lost my loan. Those are the kinds of things you have to say to tie the discrimination to whatever losses you're claiming. So step 7, so for step 7, if you received any money or relief in any of the prior claims, I see this question. This is not, no, it does not apply to your grandfather. If your grandfather received money under Pickford or Pickford 2, then that doesn't apply. This step 7 is specifically meant for the applicant. If you directly received any money in those claims for the same discrimination that you're alleging in this application, then you will want to put that. And I should say again, emphasize, they have access to these records. So if you know that you received money under a previous settlement program and don't put it, again, that could be a red flag because they will be able to find out that you did. So make sure that you put it in step 7 if you did receive money from any prior discrimination claim. However, I should also say, just because you received money in a previous program does not mean that you can't get money under this program. And that's super important. So, you know, it's yet to be seen how exactly receiving money in a previous program will impact the assistance you can get under this program. But we do know that it does not make you ineligible to receive assistance. So that's an important piece. And it also, I mean, it may help because if you receive discrimination under a previous program, that could, you know, clear the burden that you were actually discriminated against. And then step 8 is optional, excuse me. This just is a step that allows you to include any information that you feel like wasn't asked in the previous steps. So if there's, you know, if you feel like you were discriminated against in a way that's not applicable to any of the other steps or any of the other pieces of the application, this is your opportunity to write that out and include that in this step, in this piece. It's basically, you know, a blank slate for you to describe anything that you feel like the application didn't ask you that you think is important. And then step 9, you know, this is just taxpayer information request. You'll have to complete an I-9 if you're a U.S. citizen. If not, you'll have to complete some other form of documentation. And then, you know, another note is that any financial assistance received in this program will very likely be considered income for tax purposes. We don't have a definitive answer on that yet, but it is likely that you will be taxed on any money that you receive through this program. However, again, this is not confirmed or final yet. This is just, you know, what we think is most likely. And then step 10, signatures and certifications. You'll want to write your social security number at the top right corner of the last 2 pages of the application. Make sure you're signing and initialing everywhere it asks you to sign an initial. And then if you are someone, I know we have staff in this call, so if you are someone who is helping someone else fill out this application, you will also have to, you know, swear an oath at the end on page 40 of this application. So make sure you're doing that for every single application that you're helping someone fill out.
All right. So are we at the point where you want to take questions?
Yeah, can you just scroll down real quick just so I can kind of explain what Annex A is? So again, Annex A, I'll just be brief here. This is like a documentation checklist. This is actually directly from the USDA. You know, I mentioned sections that you're going to have to apply or provide documentation for in the application. This is kind of a guide that you can use while you fill out the application to make sure you're including whatever documentation you need to include. So make sure you're reviewing this when you're doing the application to just guarantee that anything they're asking you to include is included. And if you look at this and realize, I do suggest that folks look at this today or tomorrow, because if you look at this and realize there's some documentation that is required that you don't have, but that USDA or FSA has, then you will definitely want to be sure to, you know, request that information by this Friday. And again, you can do that via email, so you don't have to mail anything or print anything out to do that. You can just send an email, and the instructions for how to send that email are in this guide earlier. So, yep, now I'm ready for questions.
And I would like to say something very quick. We do have the latitude to go over a little bit here. Caleb, we can do it if you like. I would like to say that the USDA 100% in general, so this is loose, has documentation. They're required to keep records for 7 to 10 years. It depends on the office. They've expressed that they feel they've written this application where you could get through it without getting any documentation from them, because some people are kind of holding up and waiting to get information from them rather than just going forth. So again, that deadline of this Friday is super important, but it is not, don't go on and submit an application if you don't get records back, because what the USDA is saying is that they have to keep records for 10 years for sure. And, I'm just trying to say, don't stop yourself if you don't have, or you're told that, no, we don't have your records. Keep going. All right. And with that, I'm going to stop screen sharing, and let's come up here in any question that we didn't get. Grafty McDaniels, you're asking, would you speak to USDA high interest rate loans with paybacks in 11 months? Could that loss qualify to apply as a loss? And before you answer, I think that's such a specific question that we may just send that off to somebody else. Or if you want to clarify, but Caleb, do you have anything to say to that question?
Yeah, I would say, I think you should definitely send it off to somebody to clarify. If that loan was if that was a loan rate in time, like the time for payback was the same for everyone, then it may not be, because then you can't prove that you received those terms because it was discrimination. But if the terms of that loan were like vastly different than the terms of loans that other people got, then yes, you may be able to prove that that was due to discrimination. But Tandilin, feel free to loop in other folks to provide a final answer.
And I would also like to insert here, and Caleb, let's get it. Do you have an extra 15, 20 minutes to try to get through these questions? If not, we can reschedule you.
Yeah, I can stay on to like 1:15.
Okay. So I would also like to say here that the Federation is available to assist, because these applications are taking 2 hours when you have everything thought through. You've collected all of your data, and then you sit down with somebody at the Federation in one of the 7 states that we're helping. So this guide is to help you if you might try to go it alone. But then we do have DFAP technical assistance help that will step through with you and, all of these questions. Okay. So let's see. Then we've got from Trinice, is this going to be available? Yes, it's going to be available. The people on this call, as anybody who's filled out a DFAP intake form with the Federation, will get this email directly to them. But this also sits on our website. Now we're at Julian Marcus's question, and it says, is there an opportunity to go to court individually for your discrimination act? Caleb, punting to you. Caleb?
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know why. Zoom kicked me out and then like reloaded.
So the question is from Mr. Marcus. He says, is there an opportunity to go to court individually for your discrimination?
Yeah, so not under this process. Like I said, this is not a legal process at all. So no, not under this process. Obviously, if you want to file a case separately, you would have that opportunity. But this program, the Discrimination Financial Assistance Program, is not like a legal process or like a court process.
Second question from Julian Marcus, which I can take. And then Caleb, if I got it wrong, because I am in no way a lawyer. The question is, can 2021 date possibly be extended also? The answer, Mr. Marcus, as far as I know, is no.
Yeah, I believe that's accurate. They've extended the application deadline a few times, but they have not extended the eligibility deadline. So the discrimination would have had to take place before January 1st, 2021.
Juan McAllister, step 7. Does that apply only to my grandparents that farmed, or am I, as a new farmer, eligible to file a claim?
I think,
yeah.
did we answer that? Did I answer that question, Juan?
Yeah, and I really think that if you've experienced discrimination before January 2021 as a farmer, file a claim. If your grandparents are living and experience discrimination before January 2021, file a claim. Okay. All right. And then so now, okay, you're saying yes. So now we're going to move on to Brenda Evans just makes a comment that says, make sure you'll sign W-9 form. Next question from B. Should you request info from USDA if it has been over 10 or 20 years? Yes, is the answer to that. B, I would go ahead and get my request in for this Friday and see what they come back with.
Yeah. And then, Juan, just to make sure we, close the loop on that. If you are assigned or assumed their USDA or FSA debt, then you can apply if they are deceased. But if not, I don't believe you'd be eligible. And unless you were discriminated against yourself.
Guess what, folks? It is 1 o'clock, and I think we got through all of the questions that were in the chat. It is a busy day for us all. There will be follow-up to the questions, hopefully within the next 7 to 10 days, because we've got a lot of follow-up to do on questions. We hold this session for Black farmers and landowners every Wednesday at noon through the deadline. So this will be going on through January. You feel free to join again. Feel free to share with your neighbors or anybody else you feel have been discriminated against. But I think because we've answered all the questions, and we're going to pull a close to this. And I want to thank you so much, Caleb. I know that we will be in communications, and if there are any more developments, we will definitely try to keep everybody updated. All right?
Yeah, so and I just dropped the link to the guidebook in the chat for folks, because I know some folks are asking for it.
I like that. I like that, because that's what shut me down the first time trying to do that. So everybody, I want you to have a great day. Keep your questions coming. For the Federation, we have a 1-800 number, which you will receive that. I'm not going to drop it here in the chat, but it's 1-888-533-3271. Our email, which if you signed up for this, is in that communication. It is 22007dfap@federation.coop. And I'm wishing everybody completed applications and financial assistance. Have a great day.